And I think what they're describing in the police, at least a way to interpret it, what the police are describing on the way to the hospital is a guy fighting back. A guy struggling is what it sounds like to me.
Here's what you uncovered, which I find fascinating. You got a hold of the police scanner of their recordings, what they were saying, and there was a cop car following Charlie Kirk's SUV as they were taking him to the hospital. And here's what the cop said.
Oh, he says 212. Everybody get off the radio. I've got a black SUV northbound on Wolverine Way. Passenger doors open. Someone trying to hang out of it.
212. Everybody get off the radio. I've got a black SUV northbound on Wolverine Way. Passenger door is open. Someone's trying to hang out of it.
That broadcast right there was less than 4 minutes after the Big Bang. So they had already gotten Charlie Kirk from the scene of the incident into the SUV and were flying up the highway with someone hanging out of the car. Here is a bit of confusion, our first little bit of confusion that enters. This is where they think they have another victim because of someone else hanging out of the car.
I assume it's possibly another victim. They've got one hanging out of the car.
So there was some confusion there. Hey, maybe.
So no one ever reported this. You found this, but amazing investigative work you're doing. Really, honestly, swear this is amazing. And so now we have two cops saying that there's two different cop reports. I don't know if it's two different cops, but it's two different reports from cops saying that there appears to be a second victim because it looks like a victim is hanging out of the car. And why would he say that it looks like a victim unless it looked like somebody who was somehow shot or injured? So what do you make of these two reports saying that there is there's actually one more report. Let me play that.
But we have yet another broadcast discussing someone hanging out of the car. This is a third broadcast that someone's hanging out of the car.
Copy 2530. In a vehicle 50 South 1200 West in Orem, they have one hanging out of the car. We're not sure if they're a patient or if they're just trying to get out of the area.
So that's three reports from three different police reports, broadcasts saying, hey, there's someone hanging out of the car. And so when I heard that, I thought to myself, was Charlie dead? And it seemed to me like he might have been fighting for his life. And that's why he's hanging out of the car. He was trying to get the hell out of that car because the people in the car were trying to kill him. That makes more sense than anything else. What do you think?
I really don't know what to make of it, Jimmy. It's such a bizarre radio transmission, especially in light of the fact that they didn't really publicize that it existed. And there were several radio transmissions that we covered that night on that program that were new to me when we discovered them. The news media just never covered them. And a lot of the audience came to the same conclusion in the comments. A lot of the audience that watched that broadcast that night came to the same conclusion that it sounds like to them, the police are describing someone fighting back or somebody trying to escape or something else, because you saw how Charlie was inserted into the SUV. It was his feet hanging out as they drove off. I get that. But I don't understand if he supposedly died at the scene, like Frank Turek describes in his different discussions, as Brian Harpole described. If he supposedly died at the scene, just fold him up and close the door. Why are you risking someone falling out of the car at highway speeds?
Well, exact. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You just bend his legs. It's not like he's got rigor mortis yet. That takes a while to set in. So you just bend his legs and you close the door. Why would they're going 65, 70 miles an hour for 12 minutes? And you got three police reports of someone hanging out of the car, and they think it's a victim. What in the hell else could that mean? I can't know. Go ahead.
Well, I want to say that I believe that when Brian Harpole went on the Sean Ryan show, they may have been anticipating this because they would have known these broadcasts existed if they'd have done any kind of research. And I think they anticipated that people would hear about this. And so Brian Harpole goes on the Sean Ryan show and Frank Turek goes on the Megyn Kelly show, and they describe that, on the way there, they were holding each other. Charlie's such a tall man, they couldn't close the door behind him. So they're holding on to each other, and people are, trusting each other that they don't let each other fall out of the car. I'm looking back at that and saying, no, that sounds to me like you guys were setting up a story that you knew we would eventually trip over these calls, and you guys wanted to preempt any reasonable conclusion and go ahead and try to plant your own version of events.
It sounds to me like, well, here's what you concluded.
If you wonder, and as I have, if you wonder if the finishing off, and this is a dark, twisted, drab way to think about this, and I hate to even raise the issue, but I have to because I've mentioned it, that there could have been a fatal incident inside the car. That I my working hypothesis is that Charlie Kirk was not just taken down one way.
So can you expand on your working hypothesis?
Yeah, I can. There are so many things that went wrong, starting with the T-shirt moving in the way it moved, that is totally and wholly inconsistent with a gunshot to the neck. The whole T-shirt comes up, a medallion on his necklace flies into his neck. His hands, the way they grip the microphone, looks to me like he got electrocuted. His ring disconnected from his ring finger and then sticks to his pinky finger for about a full second. It's not affected by gravity, almost as if there's some sort of an electromagnetic pull on that ring. And then you have this medical report of a broken series of vertebrae from the C1 or 2 all the way down to the C7 or T1. It's and then you had the couple of wounds on his arm that almost looked like a taser or some sort of puncture wound. I just think that they brought Charlie into that what looks like a death arena and said, we're going to go after him 4 or 5 different ways, and then we're going to break his neck in the car, and he's not walking out of this alive. There's a 0% chance he leaves Orem, Utah alive. And that is my working hypothesis, that yes, something exploded under his shirt. Yes, something went wrong with the microphone and caused an electrification. Yes, something punctured his neck. I don't know if it was a bullet or what it was. Yes, his neck bones were broken. Something happened there. Yes, something wounded his arm. There's just too much going on. It's like they didn't want to risk him being Rasputin and live through 1 or 2 attempts. They wanted to make sure he was finished off no matter what. And I think what they're describing in the police, at least a way to interpret it, what the police are describing on the way to the hospital is a guy fighting back. A guy struggling is what it sounds like to me. I don't know.
So what it sounded like to me. And if you look at it, it does look like he's electric shocked. And you've talked about these 2 wounds on his forearm. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, if you look at the photos that Charles McClintock Wilson took in the immediate aftermath, I'm talking 20 or 30 seconds after the Big Bang. They're carrying Charlie Kirk to the car. I don't like to play them on YouTube because YouTube gets mad at me and threatens me every time I play any kind of footage like that. So I hesitate to play them on air, but I direct people to them. They're on his website. Charles McClintock Wilson took some excellent photos before, during, and after the event. And after the event, it looks like almost snake fangs, but they're about an inch and a half apart. It's 2 little puncture wounds on his forearm. They're not moles because we have clear imagery of him before and during the event, and they're not there. They don't look like blood splatter. They're just too small and perfectly placed there. And it looks to me like he might have gotten hit with some sort of a taser or something under the table, either to make sure he was finished off, like does he respond, or to subdue him further. I don't know. I mean, it enters the realm of speculation at that point, and I don't like to speculate too much, believe it or not. But something happened to that arm that was not present right before the Big Bang. Something happened to that arm, and I don't know what it was.
So, yeah, I think there was. I mean, all we are left to do is speculate because the story that the establishment is giving us doesn't add up. The story that we get from from Brian Harpole, Dan Flood, Frank Turek, Andrew Colvett, Boyer, Mikey McCoy, Rob McCoy, none of their stories add up. None of them, Erica Kirk, the story that Kash Patel tells, none of the stories add up. They don't make any logical sense. They contradict each other constantly. And so we're left with nothing else but speculation. We have to speculate because the things that we're speculating actually make more sense than the establishment story. So even though it sounds crazy, makes more sense than a 30-06 that didn't take his head off, than a 30-06 didn't have an exit wound, that it was one guy who somehow never been to that campus, was able to get up on a roof and nobody saw him. The security team didn't see him. The cops didn't see him. The campus police didn't see him. Nobody saw him except people in this crowd actually did see him, just like in Butler, Pennsylvania, people saw the shooter, but the cops didn't see him. Nobody in charge saw. No, and so he's up there. Somehow he gets up there. He has to put together. He has to take the gun out wherever he had it, which I firmly believe the gun was up there already, because there's no way he could have walked up there with it down his pants and it didn't fit in his backpack. So, but they said he got up there, takes the gun out, puts it together. They say he puts it together, lines up the shot, takes the shot. Nobody sees him, takes the shot. Then he takes it apart again. And that it just doesn't, none of that makes sense. And then he happens to drop the gun off, puts it back together without the screwdriver. He puts it back together and he leaves it in the backyard of a house owned by Palantir. And then nobody so it's just, we're going to get to a lot more about that, but there's just nothing about that story that makes sense. And so I don't even know if he was actually even shot. It looks like exactly what you said. Something happened underneath his, well, I'll show you this. So watch his T-shirt. Watch this. There's the Dan Flood hand signal. And watch his T-shirt. What? What is going on there?
Exactly.
You see that, right? That's his right. He's supposed to be getting shot over here. His right T-shirt goes up like that? That doesn't make any sense. Also, Frank Turek is supposed to be FaceTiming, and it's obvious he's not FaceTiming.
Correct.
So do you any commentary on that?
Yeah, I mean, I said a long time ago, if I had to try this case, and I've tried criminal defense cases in the past, and going back to what you were saying earlier, that's why we criminal defense attorneys tell people, stop talking, don't talk to anybody, because it's too hard to tie down a story perfectly that's going to exonerate you. So just shut up and let us do it at trial. But what I would do if I was the criminal defense attorney, as I'm doing my opening statement, I would have the images I intend to introduce as evidence of the T-shirt puffed up in all these ways that are inconsistent with a gunshot. Because all I'm trying to do is prove that he didn't die by 30-06 from the Losi Center. That's it. I don't care how he died. But if the T-shirt is inconsistent with a 30-06 from the Losi Center, then my guy goes home.
Have you heard of any explanation about the T-shirt doing that? Has anybody tried to give a lie about that yet?
Yeah, I mean, they've a million people have tried. I don't say a million. A lot of people have tried to shoot dummies and mannequins and try to get T-shirts to do that with a bullet. It doesn't work. The best explanation I've heard, the one that they'll probably go with at trial if it's raised, is that the neck cavitation would create some sort of pull on the chain in the T-shirt sufficient to cause it all to move simultaneously like that. I don't buy that. I think it's ludicrous. It defies, in my opinion, physics and common sense. It doesn't look like the T-shirt's being pulled by neck cavitation. It looks like it's being blown open by some sort of gas or some sort of charge or discharge under the shirt.
And if anybody knows how to make pagers explode, we know of a Middle Eastern country that knows how to do that. And it seems like that's exactly what happened. Any commentary on Frank Turek lying about him FaceTiming? I
think Frank Turek is a fundamentally dishonest person. He has been caught in so many lies over the course of this thing. That's clearly not FaceTime. Everyone knows that. He actually was seen FaceTiming on the other side of the courtyard earlier, and it looked like he was FaceTiming. It looked plain as day. You could see the images on the screen. You could see the transmission. There's nothing on that screen right there. I have no idea what he's doing. I don't know if he's using his cell phone as some sort of wireless tether to provide a better signal. I don't know what he's doing.
I saw another person analyze this very video, and they said that you can kind of make out at certain points what's on his phone, and it looked like a feed from a drone that was and because they matched up the picture on his phone with the picture that they had from this other drone. And so that's what I don't know if you've ever seen that. Have you seen anybody saying that?
I have. I don't know that I buy it.
Okay.
But I know that I don't buy FaceTime either.
Yeah, it's not FaceTime. Hey, come see me on tour in Lansing, Milwaukee, San Antonio, Albuquerque, Houston, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Las Vegas. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and don't go anywhere else, because if you do, they'll charge you more.